Hi, in this last Focus on the Project video, we're going to look at the consumer surplus at the equilibrium point. Previously, we looked at the consumer surplus at the point where we maximize profits, and that was at a quantity of about 625 items. So that was roughly right around here. However, in this particular video, we're going to look at the consumer surplus for a different region, and that's going to be the one that goes all the way up to the equilibrium point. And so that point takes place at a quantity of 809 items, not 625 like before. So we just want to make that distinction. So for the class project at the equilibrium point, the consumer surplus is about $146,816, and that's higher or bigger than it was at the price that maximizes the profits, because the area now is bigger. The calculation for this comes from looking at the integral from 0 to 809. So we're starting over here at a quantity of 0. We're going up to the equilibrium quantity now, not the quantity that maximizes the profit, 625. Now we're going up to 809, which is the quantity at the equilibrium point. So those are the limits of integration. And then we're going to take the demand curve, which is over here, and we're going to find the area between that and E of x. Now, capital E of x stands for equilibrium. So capital E stands for equilibrium and corresponds to the function that represents this line where the price is $297.34. So it's just under 300. So it's just a flat linear function. And that ends up being 146,815.93. And if I round this to the nearest dollar, I get this number here. So if I plug in the demand function and then I subtract off 297.34, I will get some polynomial. I can find antiderivatives. I can use the fundamental theorem of calculus, and I should get this number. And I'll leave that to you because that's something that you should practice for your project. You should be able to do that by hand, both for the project updates and also for the potential exam questions. I'm just doing it in Desmos to make this a little bit more efficient. But this is what it actually looks like in Desmos. So let's go ahead and turn some things off. Right now I have the producer surplus turned on, so I'm going to fiddle here for a minute, so be patient as I find the right things. I'm going to turn off the shading for the producer surplus and turn off that label. And I'm going to come up here and find the region for the consumer surplus, which is here, I believe. Not quite. That's the consumer surplus for the quantity that maximizes the profit. So we're gonna keep looking here. Got lots of stuff here to play with. I want Y between E and D, so it's this one. There we go. So there's the shading that I'm looking for, and this corresponds to the consumer surplus area. And what you can see here is if I wanted to compute this, as long as I have both the demand function and the equilibrium price defined as functions in my list, I can do this computation really easily. So you can see here, I've defined the demand function way up here. That gives us this red curve. I've defined the equilibrium flat line function right here as capital E of x. That's 297.34. And that would allow me to do something like this. I can compute the integral, int, from 0 up to 809. I'm going to open parentheses to tell it what I'm taking the integral of. Since I'm looking for the demand, the area between demand and the flat line E, the demand function is going to be the upper function, so that goes first. Then I take away the area below the equilibrium price function. So that's D minus E. So here's demand minus E. When I subtract those two functions and integrate with respect to x dx, it gives me 146,816. And again, if I go back to here, that's exactly the price that I got. So again, for your project, make sure you work through the calculations for this by hand, and then make sure that whatever answer you get can be reproduced when you go into Desmos. You will have to define things like your demand function, your supply function, your equilibrium values, but you can use this particular link over here in the slides to get to this file and then make some appropriate changes and fiddle with it. It's worthwhile for you to play with the software to see if you can get it to do the things you want, because it provides you an opportunity to create graphs that are very rich. For example, I can also now turn on the producer surplus and give it a label. And so now I have a really nice function that has all the labels very clearly displayed. And I can then, of course, make images of these graphs or do screenshots and use them to create images that I can put into the project reports. All right, so that takes care of this video on focusing on the project for this section of the text, where we look at consumer surplus and producer surplus, and that allows you to make some more progress as you work on your project.